Isn't it a great time? Oh my god, I had such fun.
Yeah. I wanna be an American immigrant.
Ladies and gentlemen, hope to see you together. This is every Make-A-Wish dream come true. Seriously. I know there's two of you sitting here just to be nice, Neil and David. Yes, but I'm gonna give you guys a lot of props, man. Yeah. Seriously, this is the honest to God truth. Today, I was trying to delete like files for this episode, and I deleted every episode I have coming up. So I need it today so badly. So you two are really bailing me out for this week's episode. So thank you guys so much. You guys are awesome. We're gonna do some stand-up, but we're just gonna move right on to the panel. So I want to bring out our comedians. Let's give it up for Soumya Dhulekar, Dorian Vasquez from XM Salad Radio, and Philly's funniest Shane Gillis. We're being joined by a special guest. She is a community organizer, just around great person. Give it a go for Jasmine Rivera. Talk to us.
I didn't know no one else was doing credits.
No, I know. You know what's funny? I know you didn't know that.
Fucking asshole.
Yeah, and when you came up to me, you're like, these are my credits. I went, all right, I'm gonna do it. Even though I asked nobody else.
Yeah, thank you.
No, but I love it because I don't, you know, fuck it, I'll talk about myself for a minute. I don't do that. People go like, what are your credits? And I go, I don't know. I should be more proud of the work that I've done, right? Yeah. Do we have a microphone for you?
Shit.
Oh, shit. We're drinking beers while we're doing this.
It's okay.
You forgot your beer? It's all right. Do you want to go get it? It's all right. Yeah. We're still settling in. Don't worry. This is all just practice. Do you have enough microphones? Is this thing on? You guys can hear me all right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I know we're right here. But I'm saying
I don't want to ruin your
good.
name.
All right.
I mean, I got more.
All right.
I bet. David, will you grab me some napkins?
No.
Fuck off. Get some napkins.
I'm in the fucking audience.
I'm in the middle of the show.
You asked half the audience to leave?
That is actually, you're asking half our audience to go get you napkins.
It's not going to go anywhere.
I'm
Just...
the giggliest.
No, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. Welcome to the show, guys.
I don't know if it's a
Thank you
cultural thing, but I have every instinct to clean that.
Fight it.
I want to clean it too, actually. I was hoping it wasn't.
I don't know if this mic's on.
Other mics, it doesn't sound.
Are they even on? Yeah,
Well, let's go.
Are they
Sorry,
good?
Everybody want to do a mic check?
Check.
Hello.
Syphilis.
Yeah, is it on?
I hear you, yeah. Soumya, you want?
Hello?
That sound good? Yeah? You want to?
Oh, she's
Oh, yeah, mine's
yeah.
on.
Yeah.
Mine should be
Great.
Yeah, we're all good.
No, not
Yeah.
that the audience needs it.
He
but
turns
just-
Soumya's
Yeah.
No, fucking
Yeah.
podcast.
No, Dorian sounds just like, he sounds like he's the hottest though. That's all right.
Yeah.
That's all right. Well, thank you guys for being on my podcast. You've all been previous guests before, so we're going to do stand-up before, but they've already seen all of our acts, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you guys want to start with the articles that I made you guys send me?
Sure.
That sounds fun. Let's start with the articles. All right, here we go. These are, I asked every comic just to send me something that they thought should be talked about that is not like mainstream.
I didn't know that was the context.
It's fine. You sent us the article that you wanted to talk about. Do you read any of my email blasts?
No. I thought I was just doing stand-up. I didn't know.
That's fine. You're too busy writing your credits.
Yeah. Oh, all right.
I'm sharp on my own show. This is fun. This is Soumya. You want to tell us about the article you chose?
Sure. So, China is just kind of building this huge transportation route between Asia and Europe, which I enjoy because it's kind of a fuck you to America. And then, like, America's not really involved in it, and everybody's like, and it's kind of this whole thing where everybody's like, we should be involved in this, and then America's like, no, forget it, like, they didn't want us, so fuck them, we're not going to be involved. And it's like, no, you should get over it and, like, get involved in this, because it's going to kind of change the entire planet and change which countries are going to be, you know, superpowers.
They're trying to connect all the, what was like the silk
Yeah.
trade route. They're trying to connect all those.
They compared it historically to, like, the Silk Route, but, yeah, it'll be a little different, but it will change everything. It'll change trading, it'll change transportation and accessibility between those countries. Like America should be a little bit scared.
I did see this on Vice, and the way they took the story, which I was interested in, was like the country like Montenegro is in on the deal, but they might default. So that's why they're like, well, China then would own Montenegro. And it's
Yeah.
like, that's one of the biggest
Well,
problems that
there's
they're
ports that they're also going in the Indian Ocean as well, and they're leasing ports to these countries that aren't going to be able to pay it. So then China will just own a port in places like, I don't know, like the Horn of Africa.
They're just gonna own most
Yeah,
of
they're
like,
just
yeah.
going to own major ports.
So they're pulling a World Bank, essentially.
Yeah,
It's brilliant
Yeah.
when you think of it.
Oh, yeah.
It is. I mean,
Oh yeah.
give them money and then know that they're gonna default and take their land
Yeah.
through financial.
It's predatory lending,
Yeah, it's evil.
Wow.
but genius.
Like
It's bad. We should not. Yeah. What are you talking about? Fuck America. Also.
No, I just don't.
What? You're
But
all
America's
showing
not
about
going-
immigrants. What do you mean? Of course fuck America.
Fuck America.
I just think it's funny because it's like this thing is happening in America.
If you don't like it, you can get out.
No, I
You're
get
playing your role very well.
Oh, I
What are you
forgot.
drinking?
I
Fucking Miller Lite.
Miller Lite.
Wait, what happened?
Some fucking German immigrant made
forgot.
this shit.
I forgot he was gonna be like this on the podcast.
Shane pulls no punches. I like it.
Well, no, I just like look. If America's an evil empire, sure, but
Mhm.
let's not cheer for an even more evil empire that is China.
Well, that's relative.
Evil is relative, yeah, sure.
Yeah. I
Of
mean,
course.
I don't know what China's like. I don't know why people explain to me like why I should hate China. Legit, like what are they doing that is so bad? Am I wrong? Is that such a loaded question?
This is a tough statement to say on the recording.
I mean,
No, not I should dislike.
human
Why
rights
should I hate
abuses.
China?
Yeah, but I'm saying like
Tons
yeah.
of human rights abuses.
Right, I understand that. Like I understand they're suppressing like the internet stuff like that. Like I just don't know much about them to know what it is that they're doing that is. So, do you understand? Like I just don't know. I'm not saying that. Like, are they good people? I just don't know. I really don't.
They play games with our money. I don't like that. I don't like people playing games with money.
You guys hear about the?
No, but
Did you hear about the Bitcoin ATMs? Because I want to invest.
more
in them.
importantly, they're very
Oh,
strong
it's not. It's dropping hard.
with censorship amongst their own people. They censor. They're very state
Yeah, yeah.
organized, and that's that's dangerous. I think the most important thing to freedom is freedom of speech and press, and they're pretty fucking horrible at that.
So you must be a big fan of Trump.
Am I? No, I'm not. Because I like freedom of
Sarcasm.
speech.
Sarcasm.
Alright, good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Freedom and Trump go hand in hand, apparently.
Yeah, especially freedom of press.
I'm just worried about the countries that will default. That's why I'm like, when I saw this, like I understood like, yeah, that's predatory lending. Like they know like Montenegro's GDP is like 3.4, and they're like, that's how much it's gonna cost for. Like they can't pay that back. Like that's pretty interesting though. I know it's evil, but it's pretty interesting. Yeah.
Once again, I think it's all relative. I'm not cheering for China either. They have their own history of
Yeah.
pretty awful things that they have done and are currently doing. It's all about the context. So we're comparing it China to the U.S. How far back are we going? Or comparing it China to the rest of the world? Either way, even though they're a communist country, it ultimately comes down to capitalism, right?
That's what it's
like profits over people.
They're investing so much in long-term plans. It's like, that's what all these countries are getting in on. And why aren't we doing that? Why aren't we investing like in solar panels and roads, like you're saying? Like why? If as evil as they are, like this is. People are complaining that there's no jobs here. Well, like China is sending their citizens over to these countries to build these roads. Like if we get in on them, we can send American citizens over to Montenegro, get a little culture. Not to. I'm just
I
saying.
mean, they arguably do with companies like JBT and all that. It's like AB Process is a welding company in Wisconsin. They're traveling welding. They send them everywhere. Like it's all over they're all over the world.
And also, I'm not necessarily cheering for China either,
Okay.
but it's more like I'm just excited for the plot twist, you know?
Oh, no,
Just like the game changer.
Be
You know,
careful.
like, I just-
Be careful who
I
your
know,
number one
I
power
mean,
is.
it might be really scary for everybody living
Yeah.
in America. It really, like, this might potentially be the time where I'd be, like, very patriotic.
Well, like, here's funny, like, I don't know why I think this funny, but like, inmates in prison have changed from like trading tobacco to trading like ramen noodle, and I'm like, I think they're ahead of what the trend is. Like, we need to know how to use like, you know what I mean? Like, that's what we're gonna be trading a ramen noodle.
Did a fucking inmate trade you that hair?
It's all me! All right, I'm just gonna move on from that. Thanks for sharing that article, Soumya. This is Dorian chose this one. Let's go with Dorian. Kim Davis has a new book out. Or it's gonna have a new book out. I love the slow reveal.
No, let's read that title.
Bad line.
Kim Davis writes about fist pounding homosexuals in new book.
Did you
Fist pounding.
You guys remember Kim Davis?
Hey, whatever
Everybody
you're into.
remembers her, right?
Yeah.
No, she knows an awful lot about what's going on in the private lives of the gays.
Go hold on,
30
go down a
minutes
little
outside
further.
of Lexington, Kentucky.
Andrew, can you go down just a little further because I did just skim through it and I want you to see the cover of her book because this is what I love.
This is gold.
What I love about like just these really, I feel really bad for like people who are completely like in this spectrum of like the Steve Bannon kind of thing because these people cannot afford like Photoshop and stuff.
That was the best photo she could find of herself.
This was clearly done on paint. That's,
Yeah.
like,
Am I allowed to hop in?
Do you want to take? This is one of our audience members.
We're some comedians.
Yeah, everybody's a comedian. Does anybody want to comment before we open up to the audience?
sorry.
No.
What's that? Does she bother? Or like?
Does Kim Davis bother?
Yeah.
Yeah, she sucks.
Yeah.
She's a moron.
Yeah, no, I know. It's just like I just haven't heard about her in so long, and it's like she's getting like blurred from Huckabee and all that in her book, and I'm just.
Yeah, Huckabee's basically just decided he's never going to be president at this point. So
Yeah.
he's just gonna back anyone who still goes to see him at a state fair.
Who is the publisher? Like, I just don't.
It's they're based out of Orlando, I think. So I mean, why it's always Florida?
This is like Virgil
12 likes.
12
Or
likes.
Utah. Or Utah.
That's a good
Yeah,
idea.
which is it's odd how like there's 2 or 3 very specific places that just like fund all of this.
Yeah.
I read something about why it's always Florida, and they have a law. It's like the Sunshine Statute where they're legally allowed to report every single crime. So that's why it's always the news is some horrific crime out of Florida because most states wouldn't make it public, but Florida
Huh.
has a
Florida
law.
is just the weirdest place ever. Like
So is that a good thing? Because I mean, they're
Why
being
not?
more transparent through what the crimes in the state, or is that not?
Maybe sometimes people are innocent.
Oh, so they just reveal even if there's innocent or guilty, they just give out the
I'm
information without.
fairly certain.
And it usually also gives like a misconception of what's actually going on in society.
Yeah.
Like, in the 90s is a really great example. The amount of news coverage that was being used, like the percentage of news coverage on your nightly news covering crime went up from the 80s, but like actual crime rates went down. And so it gives a misperception. And then depending on like what media market you're in, like who gets labeled a criminal and who doesn't, like continues a lot of racial stereotypes.
wait, so just to be clear,
Yeah, go
to get Gillis just took off, but I was interested. So wait, are they like? So basically, it's like impulsive news reporting. Am I getting that? I'm very dumb.
No, go ahead.
Things like this. So
This is why we have like a real like lawyer here, like an organizer.
Yeah.
That's what's going on. I need
Not a lawyer.
some insight. Huh? Not a lawyer?
Not a lawyer.
Oh, sorry. Not a lawyer.
Work with lots of lawyers, not a lawyer.
just definitely smarter than me. Like the entire time you guys were talking about economics, I'm looking at that spill like I need to get
I know.
fucking
Thank you. Keep it going for Shane, man. Look. God's work here. Under God's authority. That's what I love about. That's the one thing that I think I want to read this book just to see how much she cops out of making the choice herself. You know what I'm saying? Like God told me to tell these 2 people who love each other not to get married. Like that seems pretty.
Well, look, I went to college, so I have at least some
Much
idea of
more
objectivity.
What do you mean?
This is what I'll give it. Like the biggest problem that I've noted that I can see when I read this article, as much as I could fucking read out of this article, was that she's clearly like trying to not abide to the whole church and state law, which is all gay people can now get married.
Right.
But at the same time, she still has her beliefs, and my thing is that you're still allowed to have those beliefs, but at the same time, I'm also like, I don't know, maybe I'm thinking about this the wrong way, but I'm wondering, like, which gay person went directly to her when you live just outside of probably one of the most LGBT-friendly cities in Kentucky? Like,
Well, I mean, that was a whole debate. Like that was
Lexington is very LGBT-friendly. From when I was there, it's a very nice place. Good people.
But I'm saying, like, it doesn't matter that they shouldn't have to go to another county. Like they wanted to.
No, and that's the other thing too. Like clearly they shouldn't have to go to another county. But I'm like,
They could
is
be
this the only
restricted.
person who can marry them?
Most
Like,
likely, they're probably restricted based on their address. Because usually
Oh,
for
okay,
this
yeah.
kind of like documentation, you have to prove your residency.
Yeah.
And so if it's like voter registration here in Pennsylvania,
Oh,
you can
okay,
only
so
get
it
registered to
is
vote
based
in
on
your
county
county.
lines. Okay.
I don't know for a
What's
fact for Kentucky, but
to get
that's
married?
my
Like,
assumption.
that's
Yeah, like
weird.
if someone was to get married here, and if you live in Philadelphia, you would have to go to like Philadelphia County, from my understanding. Yeah.
Okay, well, I mean, that's just get the marriage license, right? Or is that?
Yeah, to get the
Okay.
license.
Are you trying to like propose someone? Trying to figure this out right here?
No,
Wait, which
So you
one
want
do I
to bring two IDs, three
Form
forms of identity.
35. Hey, my man, you were.
Go to
But
the
no,
second floor.
I agree with, there's some part of me that's like,
she's allowed to have this opinion. Is all I'm
she
saying.
shouldn't
It's-
be, she should not have that fucking job. If
Yeah,
it's,
no, and
if it's
that's
against the
the thing, too.
law. To,
Yeah, you
if what her religious belief is in direct conflict with the law,
Then
she shouldn't be somebody issuing the fucking law or giving out permits or whatever she's doing. But if there's somebody else at that fucking place of work that could do the same job as her,
Yeah.
maybe they just bring in, someone
Yeah.
out of the bullpen. If there's like, there's gay people here.
There's
just
gotta
bring
be.
out,
There's gotta be.
there's
Yeah.
a bunch of gay dudes. Bring out Rodney. He'll do it. He doesn't give a
The
fuck.
supervisor got bull in his ear, makes him go with
Yeah.
like
But-
today.
Although I'm way more.
It
okay
is
with
definitely one of
that.
those things where
Yeah.
like
I'll go the fire route.
the fact that you have to give a stamp of approval for a gay marriage, that's strict. That honestly is a gay person's job.
Well, that's why you should separate like the whole
Yeah,
thing.
they
Like,
do.
like marriage, if you go to course, should just be like, like a civil union, and then marriage, whatever, should be through the church that you want to go through. Like the connection to it, I think that's the most overlapping of church and state that we have in our system.
When my
right?
brother got married in Chicago, he married a Bengali woman, and they were having Hindu ceremony. Yay!
Yeah, people just cheer for the existence of any other.
If you're from
awesome,
Bengali,
I'm
like-
cheering for the Bengalis.
Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
Bengali.
you just hear about it and be like, woo!
Now, I knew where David's from. Philadelphia.
Anyway, so they like right up. They're planning this large Hindu wedding, and this is Chicago, like Illinois. Chicago's like in Cook County, and it's a very progressive place. They found out like leading up to that they had to actually do a ceremony in a Catholic church because the state of Illinois didn't recognize the Hindu wedding.
Well,
No joke. So
Wow, that's ridiculous.
so like let's acknowledge like deep-seated bias against certain religions in like all levels of government, but I'm sorry, but I disagree. If you're working for the county or the state or the national or the government and you have a problem with a certain like population of people, I don't care whether they're gay or black or Hindu. If you have a problem with people and you don't want to serve people, then
Or
you shouldn't.
white.
Then you don't be public servant.
If you don't like white people, you shouldn't be. up
Like,
there.
don't be a public servant. Like,
Yeah,
you
no,
should-
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and that's, I mean, it's like, this
Yeah.
lady deserves to be the head of a special interest group, not
Yeah.
this job where you kind of have to do this, it's the fucking government.
It kind of
Yeah.
it kind of reminds me because I think it came out around the same time. Remember that like the cake shop? I think it was in Indiana.
Yeah.
Now that
Yeah,
one,
I would,
it's a private business. They're wrong to
Yeah.
not make a cake for a gay couple, but it's their
That's.
right as they're allowed to not do that.
Oh, here she comes. Here she comes. You saw it? There
I
it
don't know which title it is. I'm pretty sure it's Title 8. We were talking about like no discrimination.
Discrimination to
Yeah,
use
yeah.
business.
So that's also the law.
Well, yeah. I mean,
Because if once again, it's like let's think back when these laws weren't in place. Let's go back to like Jim Crow America, right? Like that was the number one argument of like I ain't gonna serve these coloreds like.
sure.
We start getting to a point where like where do we draw the line between different people's rights? I'm very much like everyone should be able to have their own opinion, have their rights, but once you start demanding a certain right that's then violating someone else's right.
Right,
Like
right.
that's where the conflict comes
So
into.
should I be able to go into a black-owned business in a full Klan regalia and demand to be served? Even though it's against their beliefs? They legally have to serve me, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that's something you agree
I
with?
mean, yeah, they would have to.
Yeah,
Like,
they
they
would
can,
have to.
Yeah,
they
they
can
would have
give you
to.
shit. I mean, also, can we just talk about like Charlottesville?
I think
Like the whole reason why
about
those
that, like,
tiki
years ago.
torchy like Nazis were able to have their fucking protests and then hurt people was because
Right.
that was their right.
Of
Like,
course.
we don't have to worry about protecting racist white people's rights in America. That's already in place.
Thank you.
If this place was filled with people, you would have.
I wanted to jump out my 40. Like, I was
That's
like,
good. That's
there's not
good
enough
applause.
lights.
You should do stand-up, that's all you have to say. You have a late night spot by now.
Instead, you got two comics in the crowd just going word.
Word. That was mad props from them. Like, yeah, like, that's great.
But while you guys are talking about that, I'm just like a business idea I want now is I just want to make a version of Megan's Law for homophobes who run businesses. Like, this is
Yeah,
where you
let's
don't
get a
go.
list of people together. Yeah, this is good. Now that we're on this
People who hate
Marxist
other
trend, let's start
people.
listing.
Just trying to see how I can make money off this whole gay marriage thing.
I like that you keep going back to Megan's Law. That's the second time you referenced it tonight.
I worked. Dude,
What's
should
your
I-
thing as well?
That's the work where you like the all the people who diddle kids.
Oh, is it the one? I don't
That's
know.
what you get when kids think you're hot.
Oh.
It's a problem for guys like me that kids can't resist me. And
Nah, this sometimes be like, nah, never mind. Let's just see like a kid start your way, you're like, look that way.
So we're gonna start talking about Me Too next?
we could, that's why we're all
You
black.
will.
Okay, let's move on.
Political.
I want to talk about Shane's article.
Yes.
Yes.
Irish people were slaves too. We did that.
No, we talked about. Yeah. Do you want? You talked about it on the podcast real quick, but go ahead. Like,
Yeah, no, I
elaborate
mean, I thought there were gonna be people here, so I wanted to be a dickhead. But in reality, the article I sent was actually kind of just the same old fucking like, we've done this song and dance so many fucking times about like, yeah, these new immigrants, they're they're the worst. It's just about how the same thing happened when the Irish came.
Do you,
It's literally the same exact thing.
but do you legit think like the Irish thing would have been a much bigger deal in people's eyes if it happened like the social media, like legit, like if it had been
Oh
in
my
people's
god,
face
it
like
would
that,
have been it would have been. I mean, it was a big deal, but it was like.
it would have stuck in
Of course,
people's
with
minds.
social media, that changes everything. If you saw the conditions of what Ireland was at that time in the 1850s, you'd be. I mean,
And also the conditions of like Irish immigrants and what they were living in
Yeah,
when they came
yeah.
here.
it was chaos. But they were uneducated. They were poor. They were dirty. They're covered in lice and fucking. They were all dying. They were literally using slave ships to bring them over.
Oh,
Like literally the same exact. They're I forget what cabin boats. What's the fucking?
Barracoon. I know the part where they keep them is called the Barracoon because I read that book recently. But yeah,
But
that's the area.
it's anyway. It was just horrific conditions. It's funny if you scroll down a little bit, you can see that
Scroll down for a little.
this like political cartoon actually is. Look at that Irish.
Oh God.
We were called apes, and by we I mean they.
Irish.
Yeah.
actually.
Although I've been called a big dumb ape. A couple times.
That's out of love. This is out of just straight up.
Yeah, but if you read the background, it's all about like. Like they're here to destroy the establishment. They're bringing their Catholicism, their evil bullshit, and
Alcoholics, rapists,
well, they got
murderers.
they got those three. But anyway, yes, no, I mean standard.
But do you see
100%
stuff like this that
standard.
make you like more sympathetic of like just the same way like when they talk about like MS-13 and stuff like that? Like I mean
No,
they have
I'm
used
pretty
MS.
anti-MS-13.
No, I understand that, but how they use like that one to like just
Oh, for sure,
You know,
for
so
sure.
you can, like
Yes.
Without acknowledging like where did MS-13 actually originate and what is the hand that the U.S. government had in that?
Oh, I
And
got a feeling
criminal justice system?
you're pretty sympathetic to MS-13, aren't
Oh
you?
no, I hate gangs, but the
Good.
thing that pisses me off is like, can we talk about the conditions that created this situation to begin with? Like,
Yes.
like when we talk about Irish immigrants coming to America, let's talk about the conditions that created it. Why were they starving?
Because the evil British stole all our fucking food, and we had to live off our potatoes.
Were they just like
And
destroying
was
their
there
food?
food? Was there
We
food?
ran out of food, but now I'm out at Fogo de Chao, dude. Started from the bottom, dude. Now I got people handed just feeding me fucking steak.
So, I mean, that's my main point, is like, we can be upset about MS-13 and we can be upset about, like, unnecessary violence, but let's also acknowledge, like, well, what brought
Yeah, of
us
course,
to this
of
point?
course.
Let's not just get angry at the symptom.
Of course.
Let's acknowledge the disease.
Yes.
Does your
absolutely.
grandparents talk about this kind of, because you know your grandparents.
Actually, yeah. My dad, I mean, my family experience, it's weird. What's real weird is experiencing people that hate Catholics.
Yeah.
Like, it's real
Yeah.
weird to run into, like, white-on-white racism today.
Yeah.
Must be
Just
tough.
still? Like, I
Must
don't know why it sounds so
Must
shocking.
be tough. Shut the fuck up, man. See, you know, one of the reasons I brought this up here was the Irish shit was like, I think it's a weird time, and this is gonna get me crushed, but like that must be tough shit. Like talking about other people's oppression and being like, my oppression's a lot worse, dude. Shut up.
Yeah.
It's like that's a weird fucking. It's a weird world to live in.
You
I
want
don't
to?
necessarily. Oh, sorry.
No, you go. No, please go ahead.
I think that's been the biggest miscommunication between like a lot of white people and people of color is that people of color are not saying that theirs is worse. It's just what's happening right now and actually is not acknowledged enough and needs to be acknowledged more. It's not like I don't think any person of color doesn't acknowledge that like white people have been oppressed in America at some point. But like the fact that like we have so much like violence that is not reported and that, you know, I feel like a lot of times that's mistaken for like compared who has it worse.
Like you're Indian, right?
Yes.
Do they have a lot of violence that's unreported in America?
I guess I wouldn't know what's unreported,
Well,
you know.
so
But
you think that's actually happening?
yeah, oh yeah.
Really?
I think maybe not. I don't know if it's
Indian
as
Americans?
prevalent. I
Yes.
don't think it's as
Really?
prevalent as black
Especially when
people,
we're
yeah.
talking about like right after 9/11.
Yeah,
Oh, no.
yeah.
I'm not talking about right after 9/11.
Well, even before 9/11.
Even
Even
before
before,
9/11,
yeah.
after
Or
9/11.
Wait.
during 9/11, like
Yeah.
after, it's all been.
The reality is, like, when you're a brown person in America, you're racially ambiguous. And so depending on what part of the country you are, you could just be hated on for whatever fucking reason. Like in Arizona, like it was very
Yeah.
clear it was Mexican, maybe it was Navajo. I would get asked for my tribal card. When I'm over here, I'll just get fucking everything. And like, oh, I've been asked if I was Indian. I once got Pacific Islander, that was impressive. Puerto Rican, Italian. Like, I'm always amazed by the new ways.
Wait, you're not Italian?
I know, right?
I wouldn't be sitting here if I. What?
I know.
I just want to go back to maybe I don't know if I lost the train of thought, but just going back to your point, how okay, so is it Kensington where they had all those homeless tents?
Yeah.
Is that they just
Yep.
stop that, right? So I was driving through, and to be honest with you, like I'm being serious about it. I see like a lot of white men like just seem like they're strung out, and I really look at them and I seriously feel for them because I feel like they want to complain and they feel like nobody can. And I see them that beat up and I go, I get it. Like I totally get you feel like nobody's listening to you right now. And I see you this beat up and I want to cry for you because I can't, you know what I'm saying? Like I understand why they're so angry and why we can be like, well, for a lot of times you were the guy. But now I totally see the pain. I'm like, I get it. I don't know. I'm speaking to your point a little bit. Maybe that's too extreme.
No, I don't think. My point had nothing to do with white people not being able to speak out about their oppression. Because I mean, that seems like a pretty reasonable thing to be like. Yeah, maybe my ancestors were oppressed a little. Like my dad was telling me this story about like in high school. I went to a Catholic school, and the Protestant school that we always played in, like threw fish on the court because we were called fish eaters. And like I mean that's a real fucking thing. But
Pretty fucking meal though.
yeah,
I'm saying, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I would have picked that up
It was a
myself.
carp.
Fuck you.
It was good. But no, this article is just about, you know, just the shit. It just, you can read, like, even in the first paragraph, you can see what the article's doing. It's likening it to today.
Yeah.
And how, like, it's pretty clear every single fucking time there's an immigration wave in America, no matter if it's German, Irish, Black, Mexican,
Italian.
the Jews. Well,
Shout out to the Jews in the audience.
I gotta be honest, the Jews are probably the ones spreading all this propaganda. The puppeteers of the masses.
Oh man, thanks so much for sharing, man. Do you wanna hug us all? So we would all hug him now?
No.
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 Let's move on. On, and we'll do the clip at the end. Move on to to Jasmine's article, she wants, yeah, so we're gonna talk.
The only reason I picked this was so I could say fuck guys.
Yeah, of course.
Fuck guys.
Fuck guys, I say
Fuck
that.
guys.
I say that.
I got like nothing more than that. Like.
Well, yours
Go
is
fuck
about
themselves.
ICE plans to start destroying records of immigrant abuse, including sexual assault and death in custody.
Yeah.
That's, I haven't read about that one. Of course, we talked about this before, is the children.
Yep.
We talked about that, but I didn't.
Yeah, so like abuse in immigrant detention centers, which are all over America, has been like nonstop, just like in any other like prison.
Yeah.
Here in Pennsylvania, for those who don't know, the immigrant detention centers in PA are actually portions of county prisons, and so we have York, we got Pike, we got Lackawanna. In a little bit, I'll talk about Berks County, that's specifically for families. But what ICE does is that it literally pays that county prison for a certain amount of beds. Like, I will pay you this much, we get to use like 100 beds. So this portion of the prison is supposed to go for folks being held for immigration reasons, and everyone else is here for civil law convictions. Now here in PA, our prisons are primarily county run, but in other states they're privately run. And so we have a lot of private immigration prisons, just like we have a lot of private regular prisons across the country. And this shit happens everywhere. I personally have interviewed folks who were being held in York Detention Center, asking them about their conditions. And every single person had something to say about lack of like medical neglect, lack of nutrition, verbal abuse.
Well, we talked about Berks
Yeah.
County's had all those.
Berks has had all of that, but this happens everywhere.
Right.
With the private prisons, usually we see the trend of, with private immigration prisons, just like we see with private regular prisons, abuse being far, far worse.
Right.
Not to say that a county prison is perfect or a state prison is perfect, but yeah, I mean, there's been people who have been straight up raped. There's been people who have been medically neglected to the point where they died and they were brought to a hospital.
What's the work, all that.
Yeah, it's just... It's just mind-blowing. I will say this, Berks County Detention Center, the family prison, is the only immigration detention center in the country where abuse by the hands of a guard, there was an actual conviction of the guard. So in all these other immigrant detention centers where there has been fucking abuse or neglect, no one's had any punishment. None of these guards have had any justice served.
It's gonna be, even harder on this administration. But I've watched that stuff and how it should be. Oh, I'm sorry. Was that? No, I'm being serious.
It's just like a funny little, like, yeah, it's gonna be even worse now that Trump's here. What's this? It's like,
No, because we
oh,
talked
you
about
mean this shit that started under Obama?
I know we talked about this under Obama. I know, and I just feel like it would be a lot easier. I don't know. Maybe it would be a lot
No, it
easier.
wouldn't be
done
easier.
under.
It's the same.
So the same
It's the
thing.
same
So
as
the same thing
before.
going on as before
With
during the
this.
Obama administration was still going on.
Yeah.
I mean, there's been an uptick, right? Like,
That's what
our broken immigration system goes back even beyond Obama, right? Obama put in place a lot of really awful things. What we talk about in the immigrant rights movement is that Obama built the deportation machine and it got handed over to a child.
Yeah.
To probably the worst.
Yeah.
That is now like just like
Yeah.
putting it on the
I see where
right?
you were checking me on that. I see where you were checking me on that. No, I appreciate
No, they
it.
don't. They don't want to.
People
I
don't
appreciate it.
acknowledge that Obama really did a lot of horrible shit for
Yeah.
immigration, like
He
a lot.
expanded the deportation machine. He made the deportation machine much more concrete, where local governments couldn't get out of it. They couldn't opt out anymore. He really built it to the place of where it's at now, and now we have a fucking monster in the White House that's just putting it up on 11, and things have gone worse. Like, things have gone dramatically worse. We knew that going in. I remember before he was inaugurated, there's a lot of think tanks out there. There's a bunch of anti-immigrant think tanks, and there was this very long paper that had around 190 points of all the things that they were suggesting that the administration do to basically go after immigrants.
Yeah.
The vast majority of it is going after refugees, because there was just more to lose there, right? Like, there wasn't that much more to lose in the undocumented community because shit was already really bad under Obama. It's gotten worse.
Yeah.
It's definitely gotten worse, but now it's gotten worse to much more people, as we see every day. I mean, I'm sure everyone here knows about TPS for this country and that country and this country being taken away, cuts being made to this refugee resettlement, accepting less refugees to the U.S. It's bad on all fronts. One major difference that we're seeing when it comes to the undocumented community is that whereas before there were these priorities, bullshit, but whatever, at least they kind of pretended to have a list of priorities of who ICE agents should be focusing on. The reality was a lot different. We were still seeing lots of people who, like, the majority of folks who were getting deported was because of some kind of traffic incident. That was the initial starting point.
Yeah.
So whereas before,
But
at
even
least
white people getting deported though, so that, I mean, I'm
Yeah.
saying like even,
That's true.
No, because I went to a judge recently, I told him like, hey look, I'm in the situation, I got a green card, I could be deported. They're not gonna deport you, and I told him like, hey man, they're deporting white people, and he went, they are?
They
Like,
are.
I was like,
They're
the judge went, they are?
They're deporting Irish people?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, there's so
You got on ICE, man, we need you to get down on
there's
this.
so many undocumented Irish people in Pennsylvania. I forget
What the
which
fuck do you want me
year.
to do? I live on a mattress in a
Organize.
basement in West
I
Philly.
know.
I can organize my room. What are you
Gillis, you're gonna march up to City Hall and
I'm
just
gonna
tell
march to Wawa.
He's gonna point at a cop and tell him to not be gay.
Stop being gay with the shooting shit. Just
Stop being gay, dude.
Oh.
Turn on that body cam, dude. I don't want to see you doing gay shit. I know you're doing gay shit out there.
Oh.
You know what's interesting about this? I was, sorry, I was like listening, but I was also thinking about this. If you look up the top.
I know. It's a point.
If you do look up the top convictions in the last like 10 years of people who's working for Border Patrol or ICE or whatever, who actually are convicted of sexual assault, they mostly only report it when it's Latinos who do it that work for.
Yeah.
It's an odd thing. Like if, there's like a top 15 list, and I think it's like.
Wait, within,
I remember seeing
within
this
the
like years
organization
ago.
itself, are you saying, or?
Who's they? Who's the
the
white devil reporters?
Well, yes, with their fake news.
They've been fake news in the Latinos?
I mean, no. I mean, there's a lot of sexual abuse among the Latino community. That's
Yeah.
I mean, that's
That's
neither here nor there. I mean, my
That's just
my
your
sister.
Latin passion, dude.
Yeah, my
control.
sister.
That's just any community where men are around.
Fucking men, dude.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Fucking
I hate
words.
men and capitalism.
Me
is,
too.
That's why I love Wonder Woman.
I'm so sick of it.
I love the first 15 minutes of it, then it went
I
to
agree
shit.
with that, but at the same time, like, I mean, you also have to. I mean, there's just many women who are selling, who are just selling their daughters and stuff.
Oh yeah, no, women are.
Dorian.
They're
Don't
not
bring
all
that
women are
up. What are you talking about? Selling kids again? You talking fucking kids?
Megan, is that Megan's mother? Is he bringing it up
Yeah,
again?
basically.
Is that he
No,
bringing it up
but
again?
it's one of the things that kind of ties into this. Everyone's
Homosexuals is
just
okay, but
What's that?
kids is like not bringing up kids. It's
What?
like not okay. I'm just calling. She's like, oh, this is too much. It's like we were talking
Oh
about.
no, I was
kids
just
having
joking.
Homosexuals. Like a woman
I was-
wrote a book about it.
I was faking
I hear you on that.
indignation.
Wait.
But give me a ratio. I mean, they're. Yeah.
Yeah, I
There's
wouldn't.
statistics
I
that
wouldn't
prove-
know the ratios. I haven't looked this up
Yeah.
in a long time because it just like it bogged me a little bit.
What's the ratio for what?
Just reported sexual abuse amongst Latino people working under Border Patrol.
It's probably 6 to 9. That's serious XM's Shane Gillis.
No, see, so what your point is that Border Patrol who are Latin are being reported more for sexual assault than their white counterparts. Is that what you're saying? Like, you're saying within the organization itself.
I mean, it does seem that way when you look up when you just look up the statistics. Like,
Got it.
if you literally Google that right now, I guarantee you're gonna find like a list of just like it's a bunch of dudes who all kind of look the same shade of brown, and then like one white guy who's just kind of
It's like, why am I here? Gotcha.
He probably works at my welding school.
Which, once again, if we were actually going to look at the percentages to see just how many of these jobs are being held by white people
Yeah.
versus Latinos versus black people versus so on and so forth,
Yeah.
I'm sure we would probably find that like the
No, it is definitely
Latinos
across
being
the
disproportionately
board.
represented.
Yeah, they're.
Oh,
Hey,
yeah,
I want to
sure.
make a joke.
Uh,
Oh boy.
Anything else you want to add on to this? We can move
Like
on.
I said, my main thing, I only brought this up because fuck ICE,
Yeah.
ICE, and fuck ICE.
So I'm saying, can we defund them? Like, cause I've seen like, of course I've seen like on Samantha Bee and stuff. Like, can we actually look towards defunding ICE?
Do they do anything good?
What's the original
I mean,
purpose? What's the
Their
original
purpose is to
of this?
deport people.
They were-
They're immigration customs enforcement. They're the police officers.
But
Yeah, they were a branch of Homeland Security, and it was like
After,
basically cops
before-
could do the same thing that they're doing.
well, basically after the Patriot Act,
Okay.
it seemed like they really ramped up anyone who had, like, because another thing that never gets reported is that there's very diverse religious groups amongst Latinos, including Muslims. So when the Patriot Act came out, that kind of blew up, and ICE,
Wait,
they sent that over to ICE more
There's
than they
Muslim Mexicans?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I don't like that.
Mostly,
Okay,
it's
so
mostly
I'm gonna-
My oldest brother was is in the Nation of Islam.
Muslim.
Your oldest brother's Nation of Islam?
My two, yeah.
Whoa.
So I'm gonna
So,
roll
like-
it back a
Listen
little
to this
bit.
episode, Dorian Vasquez, episode 5.
Fuck yeah,
I'm
dude.
gonna roll
that.
it back. Roll it back.
Make me famous on iTunes.
One, Department of Homeland Security was created after 9/11. Before Department of Homeland Security was INS. So there's always been an
Yeah.
immigration office. of sorts.
ICE was this weird branch that came sometime
So
around the
what they did is
Patriot
they
Act.
shut down INS.
Yeah, and
When they restructured and they created the Department of Homeland Security, they decided to rebrand it as ICE. So think of it as it evolving, not like
yeah,
coming
And-
out of nowhere.
the one it was clearly an act of window dressing on their end, which is actually really fucked up to other Latinos. Is that they actually did hire a larger percentage of Latinos to do this, so it's very.
And before 9/11, ICE was an American gladiator.
The good old days.
It sounds like a
The good
Russian.
old days.
Gladiator.
Yeah, he was this American gladiator just running into Mexicans' houses.
I'm here to see you on Sunday.
Shoot him with a tennis ball.
Good old days, ICE. Oh,
He just
that was
has a
fun.
wiffle ball with a bunch of fucking foam around it. Just
But you're anti-borders, right? You don't want
Yeah.
any borders.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So
I think that should also be on the
oh,
record.
here it comes.
I think that needs to be on the record. Just
absolutely. So
little
the
context.
reason why I'm against ICE, and this, I say this as someone who was a part of passing the Sanctuary City policy here in Philadelphia, which is essentially just really no ICE holds, because there's definitely other ways in which local police are cooperating with ICE. But the whole purpose of ICE is to deport people, right? I very much believe in people's human rights, and human rights include the right to migration. Most countries in the world have signed on to the Declaration of Human Rights. The U.S. is not. And the reason I believe to the
That's
right,
the UN Council?
I think it was through the UN. However, the reality is that most of the people are coming to the U.S. to seek a better life. Most of them are coming from countries that are fucked up because of U.S. interference. And there's a long history there, and I know you've studied history, and so there's plenty of books and documentaries that can go into that. All I'm gonna say is, people are coming here for a reason. If you're pissed off about immigration, let's talk about the root, right? Let's talk about U.S. imperialism that is forcing folks to leave their home, because no one likes to just leave their fucking life behind.
Yep.
That's not an easy
Yeah.
choice.
Yeah.
I also don't believe in ICE because most folks who are getting caught up in the system are usually getting caught up through some kind of civil issue, right? We talk about the majority of folks are getting caught up because of a traffic stop for some bullshit reason. But then you also have folks who are being stopped for something that's more serious, whether it's misdemeanors or felony. However, if we're talking about true justice, to give an immigrant double punishment, as in they're going through a criminal justice system, they are serving time if they are convicted, and then after they're serving time, they are then deported. Whereas a U.S. citizen who did the exact same thing is serving time if convicted, and then afterwards has the opportunity to restart their lives again.
Yeah.
That's not fucking justice.
That's always what's up about us getting like, I always feel like, I always thought to myself like, damn, how come there aren't any like, you know, like you see Black Lives Matter rallies and stuff like that. I'm like, because with us, if, you know, ICE comes through or whatever, they can just do one foul sweep, and so we can't really organize like that the way I would like to see it in the streets. I hate to cut you off. We do have.
People are doing
I know, but we're gonna organize. I want to do more stuff. I just need to thank you so much for sharing that with us. We do need to move on to the last part. You know what? I'll skip mine. I'm gonna do. This is a game that I'm stealing from another podcast. I'm appropriating that one. It's they do okay stop. Ours is okay stop. See? That's appropriation right there. That's how you do it. That's how you do
Yeah,
it.
but I can't participate.
You have to. You just,
No, I can't. That's appropriation. I can't.
oh, but then you can do the.
I'm not a POC, dude.
Then you can
I'm
do.
not allowed to play these language games.
So just do. Okay, please. Can you stop right there?
The white person not wanting to appropriate.
Come on, you do what?
Yeah, believe it or not, there's some of us out there that,
We're trying to reverse
did some good
gentrify.
things.
Reverse gentrify.
Come on, join us. This is just a clip about, of course, what happened with Roseanne, and a lot of things happened today with Samantha Bee as well. So, just want to watch the clip. It's like a 3-minute clip. So, when you guys want to say stop, we'll comment on it, and then we'll just we'll keep going. So, whenever Andrew's ready.
Well, new reaction continues to pour in overnight over Roseanne. ABC canceling her show hours after her tweet about Valerie Jarrett created massive controversy. Barr has since apologized, saying, quote, "I want to apologize to Valerie Jarrett as well as to ABC and the cast and crew of the Roseanne show. I am sorry for making a thoughtless joke that does
Okay,
not
stop.
reflect my
Just pause it right
values.
there. Did you guys read? I don't know if they're gonna get to. Did you guys read
Yeah.
what the tweet was?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wait, so, I don't know if I read the tweet. I remember in the show they had that really tasteless joke about fresh off the boat and Blackish. Is that what this is related
No.
to?
No,
No.
Oh,
Although,
am I behind?
Yeah.
This is about her
you've
baby
been,
father.
you've been chuckling at some inappropriate jokes tonight.
Oh my god, what are you trying to do?
But,
Are you trying to out me?
This happened like last. This was just like 2 days ago. This happened so quickly. Like
Yeah.
she wrote a tweet saying like that one of the Obama's former aides.
yeah, this Iranian white lady looked like a Planet of the Apes character, which,
Meets.
Oh.
What was the other one?
look,
It's the Muslim Brotherhood.
Alright.
Yeah,
Meets the Muslim
Yeah.
Brotherhood.
I like try to
No,
grow
look.
as a person and delete.
I know where you're going with this.
Who's on the laptop, dude? Google Planet of the Apes
Helena
lady.
Bonham Carter's Planet of the Apes character. I saw it, and when people told me this was a statement, it's clearly a bad joke.
Yeah, no shit.
Yeah.
No shit. It's a funny joke to be like, that comparison wasn't too far off.
Yeah,
That's funny.
I just meant it wasn't like Planet of the AIDS or something. You know what I mean? Like she's an AIDS too. I'm just saying I'm more mad at the laziness of it.
Yeah, the
You know
joke
what I'm saying?
sucks.
Like the joke sucks.
Yeah, but
like,
the joke
if it
is
was
allowed
some-
to suck. That's what 10 years ago, we were like fucking telling people to fuck off when it came to like, oh my god, can you believe what they tweeted? Now we're like,
Yeah, but
now everyone is fired on a show because she happened to bomb once.
Here's
She
a
said some stuff on the
yeah.
show
She sucks. Who cares?
she's been fucking for a while.
She sucks. Who cares?
This is the same woman who is. I'm sorry. This is the only time I get passionate because it's the only thing I can understand.
Yeah.
Of all of that shit, but it's like this is the same woman who won most incoherent blog.
Is that a real thing she won?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
I mean, she's into like conspiracy theories and shit.
Yeah,
but
she's like fucking. She's
who
an
cares?
idiot.
And I always thought she said one thing.
Yeah.
Here's an interesting thing that I think. Me and my friend Chris O'Connor, he's
Yeah.
Indian.
See, the Irish are secretly organized.
So you guys stick
Oh
together.
my God.
Chris O'Connor.
Yeah.
Patty
Oh,
McPhee.
you're not
Wonderful.
organized. Okay.
The Irish, we had a president once too. We had a Catholic president. He got shot in the fucking head. He got his fucking brains blown out.
You know what?
What?
He's a goddamn Catholic.
He was Catholic and he got shot in the head. He's a fucking fish-eating fucking Catholic. But
Yeah, go ahead.
no, we love fish because you can't eat meat during Lent.
Oh.
Aren't you Catholic? Didn't you say you were Mexican?
Yeah, but I'm Catholic, but we're not racist. Like we don't know where this shit came from.
Listen,
You didn't get
Listen,
racial epithets at you for being
not
Catholic?
the
the
fish
racial
thing.
epithet, it's racial, not religious epithets.
Yeah, like
People are too busy on the brown stuff.
Wait, did you just use Spanish pronunciation to say epithets?
Yeah.
I'll be back.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
It's not a goddamn epithet.
Are you making fun of my accent?
Yes.
Yeah,
No,
go.
alright, so anyway, it was a funny conversation because young people today seem to be censoring things.
Yeah.
Like, do you remember when we were young and like it was shitty white moms putting fucking parental advisory labels on CDs?
Yeah.
Being like, this is bad
Yeah.
language, we need to censor it. And now young kids are the ones fucking censoring shit. It's crazy, it's a weird world.
Well, let's do this.
I
I'll
wouldn't say it's censoring. I would just say
I
that
didn't
it's
think you would.
No, because someone brought this up a few months ago, and I thought it was a really valid point. And when we talk about the current context, it's not that people all of a sudden have gone insensitive. Is that
Right.
we're in a different society now where folks can actually speak up about
Yeah.
some bullshit and not get killed for it. I'm
Yeah.
once again going back to Jim Crow America, where you called
No, I
a
was
black
talking
man.
about, I wasn't talking about Jim Crow America.
But I am. So
Okay.
before, if a black man was called boy and they didn't agree with that and they stood up for
This is a
themselves.
lot different than my argument.
Yeah, no, this is
No,
actually-
this is an evolution. What
No,
I'm saying
I-
is that we're in a different place now,
Yeah.
and I don't think it's about censoring. It's just about saying no, I don't agree with that.
But do you think she was trying to be funny?
Well, here's
she
the thing.
did. She
Oh,
sucked
look,
at
I
it.
don't
Was she
give a
trying?
fuck
No,
about
I'm just
Roseanne.
asking.
I'm not
Do you think
defending
she was trying to be
Roseanne
funny?
either.
That's at the end of the day. That's really what it boils
It
down
did
to.
not come
We're
off.
just-
Whether or not she's.
It did not
I mean,
come
it's
off
an
like she
old
was
argument
trying to
for
say try to be a joke. It always came off that she was just trying to say mean things about a person. So it's only now that you're explaining this joke, which proves it's not a
You
very
can't
good
make
joke.
fun of how people look,
Yeah.
like when you did with Kim Davis.
Oh, what?
Okay.
Okay. Look,
Yeah.
I want to bring this up. Real quick. Then we'll just watch this
All right.
clip.
I mean, if they're white, you can make fun of their looks.
No. Okay, hold on. This is what I want to talk about.
Publicly, you can.
We'll move on for a clip. What about
You can
this?
keep your job and say Trump's a white supremacist, and you can keep your job and say this motherfucker's a Nazi. You can keep your job with all that, but this piece of shit, Roseanne, it looked like I was like, this is But no, this, and look, again, Roseanne should have been fired.
Right.
She sucks. But there is the fucking hypocrisy on both sides, modern left and right in America, the hypocrisy of both sides. That, like, if she's right wing,
Yeah.
so she said something shitty, everyone was like, you fucking racist, you're fired, fuck you.
Like today, what happened with
Like
Samantha
it's-
Bee?
And then,
Yeah.
so they
That's what I'm
tried
saying.
to
So that's what I'm
counter it.
saying. Like, that's why I'm
They
trying to get on your
countered it.
side. Where like
I
Samantha
mean,
Bee
that's
called
the
about
thing
the
about
C
free
word.
speech. Guess what? Everyone can say whatever the fuck they
Yeah.
want to
Yeah.
say, but once you put it out there, other people have the right to say
Yeah.
what they want to say.
To
So
demand you get
I
fired.
don't
I don't know.
think that it's censorship. I just think that it's people very vocally disagreeing.
I'm just gonna say that given all the other shit that we've just talked about news-wise, the fact that we're more outraged about a hack is. Really I'm like, we're like,
Yo, Dorian.
how much money do we owe China and they're not letting us into this
Dorian.
silk trade?
Dorian.
Fuck, I don't know. I wasn't paying.
Dorian, Roseanne would fucking bury you. You just need to know that.
I think I'm gonna name this episode Dorian. Roseanne would fucking bury you.
No, you're absolutely right. But at the same time, I'm like,
Well, I hate to cut it. I'm sorry. I hate to cut off there. Do you want to say something before we do gotta get going?
You've been trying to like.
I know.
I know we do gotta get going. I'm sorry. You guys have been great, but go ahead. Say.
Okay, I just think that it's also just from it's not necessarily about censoring people. It's just like she said something that was tasteless that's now alienating viewership. Like I frankly just think it's like a business decision
Yeah.
where it's like you're on ABC, you have Blackish fresh out the boat. It doesn't go with where
Yeah.
ABC is going.
Yeah.
So
It's a
now
business
it's just
decision.
like
It's a business decision.
Yeah.
So just
it's
like censoring kneeling at the national anthem in an NFL game, that's a business decision.
right, but I'm
When
not,
you
I'm
open
not
the door
saying
to
that it's
censor for
correct.
business decisions, it's a fucking, you know.
Wow,
I'm
yeah.
not saying
I mean,
it's
that, I mean,
correct.
but-
I'm
no,
not
of
I
course,
hear you.
of
I
course,
hear you.
don't
I hear
agree.
you.
Literally-
Where's the line? You know what I'm saying?
It's
Because
just it's about unveiling what is the true motivation behind these different corporations.
Yeah.
Regardless of whether or not we agree with it or not,
Right.
like that's their motivation. What other people are saying online or in person, everyone's gonna be coming to it at a different way. Like I don't give a
It
fuck
is a
about
slippery
Roseanne. I
slope.
think
It's-
we've been talking about this far too long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
just- well, I think that's a great place to end. We've been talking about this way too long. Hey,
Okay.
Yeah.
thank you guys so much
I
for
think
coming
we
out.
solved a lot.
I think we talked about. I honestly I had a great. You guys feel good?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a great
For sure.
time. You guys enjoyed?
Yeah.
Thank you so much, man. Thank you. Give it up. Thank you guys. Give it up for your comments. Let's keep going for Dorian, Soumya, Shane, Jasmine, for joining us. You guys are great, man. Thank you.
So wait, did you stand up and fill it?
Yeah.
Oh shit.
I've done